Yokoso Otakus, we're back again with more 2022 anime and Japanese video games that I have played over this year, and I'm very excited to talk about these. So let's just jump right into it. First up was Tsubasa Machi, and this game was actually really unique and very interesting. It really caught me off guard. Now, this didn't exactly come out in 2022, but it was released as a Switch port in 2022, which I think is absolutely fantastic. The game is kind of this beautiful, esoteric exploration game where you have to go through a series of puzzles while you try to fix your ship. And it even has a couple levels where you fight as the ship in these kind of cool little flying battles, which is neat. It's a little blimp with a carriage underneath the bottom of it. I think this game is really good for those who want to just play something that's very simple, slightly challenging, not overly challenging, and just really rock out to this incredible soundtrack. In fact, I'm still listening to this musician. It's really good music, and it's worth playing just to experience the music. Monarch was another game that we played this year, and if you've been watching our live streams, you know that this game comes up a lot in topic. It's a game that some people really hate because it's very heavy and it's grindy and there's not a whole lot of payoffs for all the things that you have to do, but aesthetically it is a very cool game. It was made by some of the development team that made the original Shin Megami Tensei games, and you can really kind of tell in this game with all the brutality of it. This is a strategy JRPG, and it does involve an incredibly large amount of grinding. It's pretty gruesome at times, and if you want to get the true ending, you're going to be putting in some really serious time with the game. Now, I did like the characters, and I did like the premise of it, and the atmosphere is really high for me, but this game 100% is not for everyone. It's just going to be a really long game for you to just drive into. The other thing that I didn't like was at the end, there's kind of this repetition that you have to do in order to get to the boss. I wasn't really sure which route to take, and then it kind of made you take every single consecutive route all in a row to get to the final boss. But if it does sound like it's for you, it is challenging and it is brutal and it has a really great dark atmosphere and it is worth checking out. Another game that we covered for NIS America was The Cruel King and the Great Hero. This game was absolutely adorable. It's a huge difference from what Monarch was. It's very storybook styled in both its looks and the way that the story is told. And it's a cutesy little JRPG where you wander around and learn more about this character and their connection with a great big giant. The world's very interesting. It's kind of large. It feels like a Metroidvania game, and it can involve a little bit of grinding, but I did thoroughly enjoy this. It's a beautiful story. It's very cute. It's a very fun game to play. I'm glad I have my copy on the Switch because it is one of those games that's just really nice to grab and go. One of the most anticipated games that I had this year, I was so excited about it, was Ghostwire Tokyo. If you're not familiar with it, this is a JRPG that is of the shooter variety, and it takes place in Tokyo and is all about the supernatural. It had all the elements of things that I would absolutely want to see in a game, including fighting design that was done by the Doom 2016 creator, which is huge in itself, and was made by one of the devs of The Evil Within. Unfortunately, I don't think that the execution landed on this one. It's a fun game and it's great to play all the way through. The side quests can really bog you down, and it's very hit or miss whether you're going to get payoff to those side quests or not. Some of them are absolutely fantastic. Some of them are huge letdowns. But if you do like more fast-paced RPG action in an FPS style, I can suggest this pretty highly, especially if you love Japanese lore and styles. This game's filled with it, and again, this is another game where the atmosphere shines. We also got a copy of Crystar for the Switch. This one had come out on other platforms much earlier than 2022, but it got its Switch release, and honestly, I was really excited for this one. It had really cool aesthetics. There's a Shiba in it. You cannot go wrong with that. Overall, it was just a very clunky action RPG, and it just didn't set as right with me as I wanted. It's also has some really super dark elements that are in it. I'm not going to spoil anything too far. If you play through it and you can push through the kind of yuck of the gameplay, you will find a pretty wonderful story and you might be happy with your purchase by the end of the game. Something totally different but very anime for the page. We got a couple copies of the game called Crime Site. This game is kind of a cool little mystery game. You could almost say that it's similar, if not the more adult version of Among Us. You have a bunch of different players from wherever in the world, or you're playing with your friends, where you're stuck in these different locations, like a mansion, and you have to kind of organize your item pickups, and one person is assigned a killer, and one side is determined as the detective. It sounds like a really good premise, but in practice, it got kind of boring, and unfortunately, the player base sunk off on this one really heavy. I don't know that I can recommend it anymore just because the fan base is pretty much obliterated at this point, but if you do end up looking online to see that there is people playing and you want to check it out, it does go on sale now pretty often and isn't all that expensive. I played a demo for this really strange game called Back to the Dawn. I actually referred to this as Beastars the game. You play as an animal that gets incarcerated and you have to maneuver your life through prison. If you don't know anything about me, I work in a prison in real life, and I'm very fascinated with these kind of games that take on prison cultures. This one's pretty good. It has a lot of elements in it that really make a lot of sense, and it turned out to be pretty fun. The demo isn't very long, but there is a bunch of stories that the devs are going to come out with in the future, and I definitely think this one is a game worth checking out when it does get its full release. I'm very excited for it. I played one of the most extreme ecchi games I've ever played in my life called 7 Pirates H. This one has been kind of controversial because it is a standard JRPG. However, you can customize the characters' power levels by changing the size of their boobs. The game also features a lot of almost cringe level, inappropriate enemies that look like phallic objects and other things that I can't really say on YouTube, but this game is it's for the thirsty, I'll let you know that. But if you do take it as a comical adventure like I did, I actually had a lot of fun. The mechanics aren't too bad, and it is kind of just crazy seeing what this entire world is and laughing at all the hilarious perverted things in the game. This one is on the Switch. They had a limited edition that came out. I don't believe it's available anymore, but definitely check out the regular edition for sure, because it's a ton of fun if you like this kind of stuff. We got our absolute biggest game that we have ever played on the page so far, and that was called Amore. I did my first playthrough of it on the PC, and then I later bought it for the Nintendo Switch. I have not completed the Hikikomori route, which I do plan to get to at some point, but this one was a major game for us. Not only in terms of how many people came in to watch and the incredible amount of support we got from that wonderful community, but also because this game really took me by surprise. It's a small developer that made it, and they do incredible artwork. They put a very dark story involving children together, and it's just everything that I really love about video games in a game. There's a lot of inside jokes. There's really incredible moments with the characters. It is a very crazy story to the verge of almost having some jump scares involved. It feels a little horror-y at times, and other times it feels very light and childlike. I really cannot talk highly enough about this game. If you are a person who likes anything that is RPG related, especially more classical in offerings, I highly suggest you check out Amore. Even if you don't think you would like it, you will probably be surprised, because I was blown away, and this one very easily ended up in my highest ranking games of all time that I've played. On the darker side, we played a little game called The Administrators. Now, I'm not going to talk too much about this because it was terrible, and I suggest that nobody ever plays this. That's why I'm bringing it up. This is a visual novel, and it looks really good. It's graphically nice, but everything about it is terrible. The story is awful, it is short, it is poorly written, and the translations are abysmal to the point of almost not making any sense at all. So all I will say about this is, please, if you ever see this recommended to you, absolutely do not take the bait and get this game. It is not worth a single penny. Something really strange came my way this year, and this was a MOBA game of all things, a genre which I generally do not play at all. We got the opportunity to play Eternal Return, which is a really awesome anime aesthetic MOBA that's kind of fused with some other genres as well. It plays really, really good, and as many times as I've tried MOBAs before, I've never really found anything quite like this. We continue to work with the developers, so at times you will see me make videos on the new skins and stuff that are coming out. The game has a wide variety of characters and a wide variety of costume options. It absolutely is a ton of fun, and I really think that the devs have been making a big push on trying to get more people into playing the game. I really do suggest it. Even if you've never played a MOBA before, it's free to play, so I think you should just at least download it and check it out and see what you think, because like I said, there's some survival elements and stuff that are mixed in there, a lot of really cool crafting, and I had a lot of fun. Me and my mod Marcelo played the game and really did have a great time. Another big surprise for us was a game called Sonicby. Sonicby is a very fast-paced, side-scrolling shooter game that has one of the most amazing stories that I experienced during this year. I'm not going to get too deep into it. I do have a review that you can check out. It was a little spoilery, so that's why I'm not going into it here, but the story is really going to get you very, very quickly, and this game offers some extremely fast-paced and very challenging gameplay that is absolutely worth checking out. Also, the pixel art style is just beautiful. Everything meshes together well and works well, and I think it really helped keep those really fast frame rates and smoothness that's needed for a game like this. I definitely cannot recommend this one enough. On the more Chinese side of things, we played another game called Nugget Tail. It was a pretty interesting game. I don't know that I have a lot of long-lasting feelings about it. It is a procedurally generated game that you play over and over again. It's a roguelike, and has some interesting characters. The design for things was good, and the gameplay is pretty fair, if not anything really standing out in it. I don't know if I super recommend this one. I guess if you really, really like roguelikes, it's not bad at all. I just didn't think there was a whole lot about the game that stood out other than its graphics, and even then it was almost kind of upper mid-level at best. Another game that I really appreciated this year was Little Noah's Scion of Paradise. This was released for the Nintendo Switch, and it is another kind of roguelike game, although unlike the other one, I feel like this one really, really stands out. You have this wonderful base with a huge amount of upgrades that you can get as you continue to play. The gameplay is pretty fast-paced, and it's a lot of fun. The bosses are very interesting and can be really challenging the first couple times that you play them as you kind of craft your way into maneuvers on how to take those bosses out best. It has absolutely wonderful graphics. It's just an incredibly beautiful game, and I thoroughly did enjoy my play with it. In my last video, we talked about Tokyo Chronos, which was a VR visual novel game that I had nothing but high remarks for. We also got to play the sequel. Alt Deus Beyond Chronos really superseded what the last game put out. It took everything that I thought was so good about the first one that made visual novels so much more immersive in VR, and it expanded upon it very, very greatly. I cannot say enough good things about this. Even if you're not a super huge fan of visual novels, if you have a VR device, I really do suggest checking these out. They have a lot of kind of cool Persona style vibes, some futuristic vibes. Everything feels incredibly anime, and you are just so immersed in this world and how you interact and go through these different themes and stories. And the beginning of this one really started off with a huge bang too. You take control of a giant mech and you get into this wild battle, and that's literally how the game begins. It's fantastic. It's a really great moment. We have another video on the page you can check out as well. It's definitely worth checking this game out, and they're really not that expensive for how good they are. I really cannot say enough. Like, this is a visual novel that you should really take very seriously. Our second biggest game, and one that I was very, very anticipated for, was Digimon Survive. Now, I think a lot of you guys are probably very familiar with my playthrough because I went through this for a lot of hours on the page, like a whole lot of hours. I thoroughly, thoroughly enjoyed this. And that's coming from someone who's not really a fan of Digimon. I don't not like Digimon, but it had been so many years. I think when I was in middle school, well over 20 years ago, that I last played a Digimon title, and this one was everything I wanted. I think that they could have done a little bit more with the game, and the release was a little rocky in how they handled a lot of things. I have a lot of videos on those, but overall the game was just outstanding. The story is incredible. The choices that you're given really seem like they matter, and just watching the horrors that these children go through, because I tell you what, this game is really, really dark. It is absolutely worth experiencing. Now, like I mentioned before with some other games, this is a very, very text heavy game. It's basically a visual novel with very light fighting action that happens, and it's a strategy top-down, kind of more like a Disgaea styled fighting game, which is done really, really well. There's just not as much of it as there is story. But if you like great stories, you're gonna love this, especially if you like dark stuff. This was handled very, very well. In polar contrast to that, we also got a copy of Shinchan from the developers. This game was called Me and the Professor on Summer Vacation. I initially was really interested in this because it looked almost like a Harvest Moon style game, and it wasn't. There is some farming elements that you can do in it, but most of it is taking Shinchan across this little countryside of the area and completing different missions, which makes the story go farther ahead. There's a lot of really great characters. This was a ton of fun. It was very silly most of the time, and Shinchan is just a hilarious and classic anime character. You have to be familiar with him if you know anime. This one was for the Nintendo Switch. It played really well, but I think the biggest highlight of this was the graphics. Some of the artwork in there, including the backgrounds, were just phenomenal. I mean, absolutely mind-blowing. And it was really beautiful to see that on the Switch, because we don't get a lot of things that are really highly visual, but because this was drawn artwork, it worked out just fantastic. Another game I was super excited for was the NIS Collection Volume 3. Now, if you're not familiar with NIS Collections, they do cover a lot of the older titles, sometimes titles that we never got in the States, sometimes ones that we got but haven't been released for a really long time. This package had Rhapsody, which is a childhood comfort RPG for me. I know it's a very girly experience, but it is a very beautiful game, and it was a lot of fun. It doesn't take a huge amount of time to beat, even if you do it completely. I think it took me roughly about 20 hours to go through this story, but it's a very well-rounded RPG, if not extremely easy, but you will have a lot of fun in it. And along with that came another game that people were very excited about, and that was La Pucelle Ragnarok. This one has a lot of connections with the Disgaea series, and if you're familiar with that series, you will find a lot of familiar things in this game. It feels very much like the older Disgaea 1 or 2 games. It was really beautiful, and they did a really great job with it. Everything looks very clean, and it seems like they've updated a lot of the graphics with the game. I really can't recommend this enough. I had my buddy Greenslade Gaming come on and play the game for part of the review, which he thought was a really wonderful experience as a huge Disgaea fan, and I did appreciate his input. You guys should definitely check out that video. End of the year was really good. We also got Trials from Zero, which is a game that we haven't seen for quite a long time. I believe actually it only came out in Japan initially, and this is our first American release of the game. I think they did absolutely fantastic with this one. I've never really played any of the Trails games before, and I wasn't sure what to expect, or even if I should be jumping into this one as a starting point, but I loved it. I love this game. I got an early release copy of it, and it seemed like I couldn't stop playing it. It was hard for me to even make a video, honestly. But it has everything. There's all sorts of different side stuff to it, too. There's like fishing mechanics you can do. There's a lot of cooking stuff. There's a huge amount of quests and side quests that you can do in a really beautiful world, and it is a turn-based RPG. It feels very classic, and it's just a beautiful experience. I think I definitely want to check out more of this series after being so invested in it. 2022 also saw the release of Soul Hackers 2. This one really hit us SMT people real sideways. Seems like the reviews for it were very polar. I have not beat the game myself. I don't think that it does stand in line with a lot of the other SMT games, especially when you compare it to Soul Hackers 1, which was a radically different game. This one's pretty fun. I really do like the vibe of the world that you're in, and the characters are fairly interesting at times. It's kind of a weird fusion between a lot of different, more modern SMT games that we have lately, but there's some dungeon crawling aspects. There's a lot of side missions that you can do within the game. And overall, I did like it, though I really can't bring myself to say that I loved it. I was hoping for a little bit more, but it was a very solid game, and they're continuing to put out patches and stuff which are fixing things and bringing a lot of the features that people are interested in. So I do highly recommend checking it out if that's something you're into, especially if it's on sale. It's absolutely worth it on a sale. So I didn't actually cover this one on the page, but it was a game that I played. Bayonetta 3 came out this year, and that is a continuation of a very long and beloved franchise. Now, there was a little bit of drama with the original VO as she'd been replaced by a new one, but I don't want to talk about that in this video. It kind of is settled as it is now. Bayonetta 3 is a really, really great game, if not held back a little bit by the hardware. It is very fast-paced and action. If you've ever played a Bayonetta game before, the first thing that I feel like everyone just kind of notices with it is there's just these grandiose scale battles. I mean, just super huge monsters that you're fighting. In this game, you're summoning your own ones that pull up on the screen too. And it's just kind of a raucous, wild ride filled with pure shenanigans and just absurdity, really. If you do like games that are very fast-paced and action-based, have somewhat complicated controls, though there is a simple mode that you can use as well, I think this one's definitely got to be high on your list, because it's just pure adrenaline, wild battles, and just a ton of fun overall. Similar but very different to Amore, I also got my hands on a copy of One Shot, which was recommended to me by many people. We had the World Machine Edition that came out for the Nintendo Switch. There's a couple controversies with it, as you normally would play it on the PC, and a lot of stuff has integration with your built-in operating system. They obviously weren't able to do that on the Switch, but they did make their own like little fake operating system that you worked in. This game's very beautiful, it's very cute. You can do multiple playthroughs of it, and one of the huge things that just completely floored me on this is when you do the second playthrough of the game, it actually changes how the game plays. It's not just simply rinsing and repeating what you've done before. There's a lot of changes, and it's absolutely worth playing. It's almost like being able to play a sequel to the game. I absolutely loved it. You play as this cute little character named Nico who needs to take a light bulb up to a tower in hopes of saving the world. But as most stories go, not all is what it seems. And by the time you get to the end, you're gonna have some feels, especially on that second playthrough. It was a beautiful game, and I can't recommend it enough. Finishing this up to the games that we've played on the page so far mostly is Yamawari Lost in the Dark. This is a horror game that doesn't seem like a horror game at first. If you've ever seen any of the screenshots or anything for the game, you have very cute characters and very cute worlds that you're in. However, this game will literally make you crap your pants. It is pretty wild. Things get very intense. You play as this girl in this world, basically hunted by a variety of beasts as she tries to complete her goal. The beginning of the game starts off very terrifying, watching some pretty insane scenes of bullying, which will kind of break your heart to start off and set the tone of everything that's to come ahead. I really do recommend this game. It is a very recent release. So that's it. That pretty much covers all of the major games that we played that are Japanese and anime related. And I really hope you enjoyed this. 2022 has been an absolutely fantastic year for us. I've got to meet many new faces and learn about you guys, which has been just a ton of fun. If you want to join Senpai Squad, feel free to hit the subscribe button, and we'd love to see you join in on some of our conversations or even check out our Discord. We do have a lot of fun over there and on the page, and I do appreciate everyone so much. You guys are amazing, and I think there's some really great things to come. I look forward to seeing the games that we're going to be playing in 2023. I'm Dre with Yokoso Otaku. If you like the content, hit the thumbs up. If you don't, hit the thumbs down, and I'll catch you on the next one.